which sucks.
It does. It does suck. Hey, welcome back. It is this week's edition. It is the TPC at Sawgrass edition of Putting for Dough here on the OddsShopper Golf Channel. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for helping us grow this channel. Also, as we see the numbers grow and rise, you can hit the thumbs up button. You can subscribe here. We have a lot of content throughout the week. Eric Lindquist and more on here, so don't worry. You'll get to see him as well. Ben Rasa at Jazzraz DFS at Shander Show for me. Chris is producing. My friend, we have to look back at the API. We have to introduce a new book that we're working with here on Bet365. We have to look at the TPC. But first, before we get all of that, can you please tell people, explain to people how you can travel to Florida and look paler than you did before you left?
Yeah, man, I was out in the sun. I'm all back from Florida. I flew in specifically for the show. I was having a nice morning in Florida. I flew right back to New York to get back into it. They don't have betting down there. What are we doing? But no, I stayed inside. It was like 90 degrees. I did go swam some laps in the morning, and I think I tore. Yeah, might as well have been. I think I tore a hamstring and a shoulder. So I'm walking wounded. I didn't get to see as much API because I was on vacation as I wanted. I watched the last round. Kitayama, super gutsy hold. Man, what a ridiculous leaderboard that was, though. I want to hear your thoughts from someone that obviously I know was immersed, sweating out Hovland, amongst others, with what you thought before we get into what's going to be a great Players' Championship.
Yeah, it was really hard, right? Because with Kitayama, you thought that there were going to be a couple of openings. You had some other names there lurking, right? As we saw with Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy with the typical push. So as somebody that was holding on to the Hovland ticket that we talked about here on this show, very concerning. In fact, put a short up before Sunday's action on the OddsShopper Golf Channel, Ben, about Hovland, really because as you saw, I think it was like they mentioned on the broadcast, 11 of the last 13 years, the winner was in the top 5 after 3 rounds, finished under par after 3 rounds. So you tried to really find some value on the last second there for Sunday. And there was Hovland sitting at 4-1. So you could have doubled down again, and he had chances. A couple of guys had chances, but you mentioned Kitayama with a huge role. And it was somebody that I think was a familiar name. This wasn't an amateur. This wasn't somebody who earned his stake here on Monday. This wasn't somebody who just screwed up the entire tour here. Anybody who had Kitayama winning this thing, hats off, congratulations. But I didn't feel like, oh my God, somebody came out of nowhere and robbed 4 or 5 of our tickets.
No, I don't want to say that either, but I'll say this. I think Kitayama to me was in a bucket, and I think a lot of people shared this view. It wasn't that I didn't think he could win. It's that for his first PGA Tour win, I didn't think it would be at something so high end. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a name where I'm like, wow, I never thought that guy was going to win. Far from it. I just thought it might be a swing season event. It might be kind of not an elevated event, but to go up against that's a major level field. And he held off a lot of names, and that was very impressive.
So the only thing I'll push back on is the held off, where I think guys they blew opportunities. If you look at everybody's event, and maybe that's the wrong pushback is the wrong thing, Ben, because I agree with you, I think mostly here, and I don't even know if I disagree, but Kitayama, outside of what we saw to kind of seal it, he shot 72 on the final day and won by a stroke. If you look at anybody who did something special on Sunday, it was too late. Like Patrick Cantlay had himself a day on. It was too late. It was too little. Yeah. He already had on Saturday. He put himself out of the tournament. Rory put himself out of the tournament on Monday. So it wasn't like Kurt Kitayama was unbeatable. And I guess that's back to your point there. There were so many opportunities, but I think that the problem was that if you made a mistake on Monday through Saturday, that was it. Like you couldn't overcome it. And that was kind of weird to see for a guy who only won by a stroke.
No, I get it. I still think, and I think we're saying pretty similar things.
You're right.
That when he needed to make the shots, whether it was to shoot 72 or 66, it didn't really matter. He made the shots when he needed them. You know, you're on the last hole, you got to get up and down, and he puts it within a centimeter of the cup. Like that's just very, very impressive. So hats are off to Kurt Kitayama, and certainly a guy that we're gonna have to keep an eye on even this week.
Real quick, what grinded you the most? It was for me, Matty Fitzpatrick, 76 on a Saturday. This kid was in the hunt, and then all of a sudden he just implodes on a Saturday.
Yeah, so I guess what was I guess I know what was the most frustrating. It's the guy that I can't get right is Xander. More complaints on the DFS side. When I don't play him, he's unstoppable. I played him heavily. He was on the betting card. He is prime position after 36 holes. No show on the weekend. Straight no show. And that is just super disappointing for a player of that. You mentioned it. You want to go back to Kitayama for a second. A guy like Xander, when you look back in hindsight, he didn't even need to do that much on the weekend. He puts a couple, in the 60s. He's hosting the trophy. So it was a fine week. Hatton was up there. Rory was up there. But nobody really consolidated it to the level I needed. And that's fine because I wasn't going to come up with Kitayama on the outright market. It just wasn't going to happen.
75, 76.
Yeah, what are we doing here? I was in Florida, but I could see that. I mean, my God.
Look, it's not going to get any easier here at Sawgrass. We're going to dive into this. We normally tell you about an opportunity where you can dive in as a new bettor. There is nothing better than betting on golf. Absolutely nothing. It's a fantastic sweat. And it's not just betting outrights. We have top 40s, 20s. We have matchups, head-to-heads, 3-balls. Keith Mitchell hitting his 3-ball that we hit on the Discord last week early and on the OddsShopper channel as well. Collectively, Keith Mitchell coming through. But we want you to take advantage of this pretty cool offer from Bet365. It's what you call a no-brainer offer, right? It's going to take you about 70 seconds to click a link below, sign up, put your information in, and deposit $10. That's it. That's part of the whole 70-second process. Once you're done that, right? Just you put $10 in, just bet $1. That's all. Bet $1 on anything you want. It doesn't even matter. Just bet $1 and you'll get $200 right back into your account to use as bonus bets. You have to be 21 or older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And of course, you have to live in a state where you can legally place a wager. All of that, Ben. I mean, this is easy stuff. You're putting $10 into an account. You're betting $1 and put that $1 on anything right away. You see Chris is scrolling through the NBA. So hit NBA. It doesn't have to hit none of that shit. Just bet $1 on anything. Now you have $200 to go play with.
Listen, if you're fortunate enough to be in a state that has Bet365, it's a book that a lot of people are super excited about. The offer stands on itself, but just in general, I can't say enough about this book. You may be in a state that doesn't have it, and that's something we'll have to deal with. But if you are, what a great way to take advantage of it. As you mentioned, we're talking about $1. I mean, come on now. It doesn't get easier than that.
Chris wants to bet Hofstra. I have no
Hofstra,
problem with that.
Big boy game today. UNC Wilmington is no joke.
No, they're a good team. They just took down
somebody. Drexel, I think.
It was a local team here, Drexel. Sorry.
Yeah. Hofstra went full biblical on William and Mary. I saw some of that yesterday. Just no mercy.
No, they can light it up. All right. Speaking of no mercy, let's look at the whole field here at Sawgrass. We're still in Florida. We know about 17. This is the Peter Dye special here. So you're going to have to shape a couple of shots off the tee. You're going to have to be really sharp. In Florida, it seems to be a theme here. Weather aside, you're going to have to be really sharp with your irons, really good with your approach shots. And it would help to knock a putt or two down in succession, Ben Rasa.
Always. I mean, it's Sawgrass. Obviously, people know it from the island green, things like that. But to me, the course doesn't really do anything that's unexpected. You mentioned it. You got to be crisp with your irons because if not, you're going to be in the drink. You're going to need timely scrambling. We've seen the Webb Simpsons of the world and guys like that win the tournament because of good around the green play. And you need to be accurate. I don't think you're going to be as aggressive off the tee here. And the driving distance numbers bear that out. Got to hit your fairways, get up and down when you can. And of course, we have to keep an eye on the wind because we really don't know how severe that's going to be this early in the week.
Yeah, the wind is going to be a big part of this, as we saw last week. And a guy like Corey Connors was able to cut through it. So somebody we mentioned here, head-to-heads and all. But the weather aside, Shane Lowry had a couple of top 10s back-to-back when he was struggling a lot. And I think that, to your point, is you can get around either having not the best play or the best really streak or so that you're going through, or dealing with a tougher field if you can scramble, if you can make up for what you see. And we also just don't, we have a couple of guys here at the top that just don't have that great of a history here. And I think that's probably, we talk about course history a lot, right? Each week. I'll say this. I think at Sawgrass, course history is probably as overrated as distance off the tee.
I couldn't agree more. In general, in Florida, if you play these courses long enough, you're going to have some missed cuts, because a couple of times your drive that's not great bounces into water, and that you just don't get that in some of the other areas of the country. You can't recover out of the water. So it's just a high variance course. You see a lot of fluke. I'll just reference even a couple. We don't need to deep dive this. Rory McIlroy, he won in 2019, Players Champion. He got cut in 2018. He was 35th in 2017. A guy like Justin Thomas, winner in 2021 at the Players. He was 75th, 11th, and 35th leading up to that. And you don't see like, oh, he was third, then he was fifth, then he was first, then he was third, then he was first. Like, right. It doesn't exist here, and you're not going to see that. So right off the bat, my guy has bad course history. If I like him, I will gladly still play him.
Speaking of which, I think one of your guys at the top, and we can dive right into this here, actually does have
both of them.
Both of them have brutal course history. Although one, I think it's a perfect course and a perfect time, I think, for him to win it. And we'd all be like, oh, yeah. I'm not shocked at all that he won it. But I'll let you take it away. You've got two guys at the top here.
So, again, we have to say this basically every week. You want to bet Rory, you want to bet Rahm, more power to you. I think they're fine. They're still inside 10-1. It's always a little difficult for me to get there. I'd rather try to pick them up during the tournament. The next batch, you've
Rory,
got guys.
I think real quick, Rahm didn't move much, if you noticed that this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Rahm,
he's not getting much of a benefit, Ben, if he's 4 or 5 out, where Rory, I think, still did. On Saturday for that short, we got Rory top 10 at a really good number heading into the final 2 days at, I forget the final, but it was like, plus 250, something like that. Like, it was still a good number for where he was versus Rahm. So I didn't mean to cut in, but I was just saying, I don't think Rahm's getting that benefit.
Yeah, I mean, Rahm, I still think there's reasonable questions. Not that can he win in Florida? I mean, of course, but is this his preferred type of golf? He showed flashes of just sheer dominance again, and then he really did not play well on the weekend at API. But regardless, you've got guys like Xander, who is 25-1 out there. Cantlay's hovering around 19, 20, 18, anything in that range. Both of them have had pretty rough course history here. But at the same time, I think both of their games can really take apart a course like this. And I know Xander can. He was runner-up in 2018. He's missed the cut in 3 straight here. Cantlay hasn't got to go at either, but he was very impressive last week. I thought that he showed kind of some of what we're used to seeing with him. Gained 10 strokes tee to green. He was flat with the putter. Patrick Cantlay could easily be coming into this off a win. So those two names stood out to me. I know Justin Thomas will probably get some love. He flashed there as well. But for me, it's really hitting that same. I've been doing this week after week, 20 to 25-1. There's a lot of names that I have interest in once again.
Yeah, I have no problem. Look, Xander is last week is going to leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, and I get that. But Cantlay, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Patrick Cantlay came out and won this thing.
Cantlay certainly is trending the right way. There's no doubting that. Now, Xander, I don't know what to make of his strokes gained. He lost 3 strokes off the tee. I'm going to throw that out. I'm just throwing that out. There were water. It was a weird week. I saw enough. I'll say that.
So you mentioned JT. This is the opposite of course history doesn't matter. And look where he is. This is not a guy who is where Scotty. I could argue that he should be where Scheffler is, probably right around that time, based on what he did. I know he wasn't top 10 or top 5 like we wanted at the API, but still gaining strokes where it mattered, especially off the tee and approach. I think the bigger thing, though, for me is this is a guy who has not missed a cut, and he survived. Remember that shitty bad weather draw that he got, finished that in top 40. He's somebody who has a knack for playing well enough to survive here, that if you add that extra little get up where he has been playing well and he is gaining strokes in some key areas, look, I don't think you're losing value, Ben, by taking Justin Thomas where he is on the board.
No, listen, he's in the same range. And I totally get it. His stats have been a little all over the map, and I actually like that because it feels to me that he's close. He's had a couple weeks where he's been dominant tee to green and he didn't have the putter. He's had a couple weeks where he had no ball striking and he putted really well. He's trying to sync it all together, and he's a former winner here. And when you think of Justin Thomas, well, I would take his around the green game basically over anyone in the world. I would take his short iron game at times over anyone. So he has the skill set that translates to success at TPC Sawgrass. So I'm fine with him. It's just, again, you can't play everyone. I have Cantlay ahead of him. Sure. He's really close. Him and Xander for me are both guys I really do want to look at, though.
But we have some more to look at here as well, including the mid-range where I just think that
mid-range sucks.
It does. It does suck. Now, that means that we're going to have to load up on the long stuff here, but the mid-range does. I don't know, Ben, if it's just the odds for you or if it's a matter of there isn't a name that you truly like. It's probably a healthy combination, but what's the lead for you as far as why this mid-range kind of sucks?
So I was flying home. I was on the plane. I was looking at this, and I was not stunned because these are good players, but I'm like, man, the Players Championship and Keegan's 50-1 in spots. Ricky's 50-1 in some of these spots. I'm not in love with these numbers. Thigala looking for his first, major breakthrough,
right?
In that 55-1. I just couldn't get there. The one guy that I thought, okay, is Sanjay Im, who's 40-1 out there on DraftKings. This is a guy that's won in Florida before. He's a winner at Honda. He's been in big-time tournaments, and he's represented himself fantastic. He was quietly up there last week. Again, he's got to fix the irons a little bit, but he's a great Bermuda putter. I think this is the type of course that he should thrive at long-term. And he's got some reps at the Players. Never really made a mark, but again, I don't care about that. So Sanjay, Tom Kim range, but man, I thought the mid-range was one of the worst values on the board this entire week.
Yeah, I agree, man. It was really tough to find a guy that I love with the value that I thought I was taking some risk on. And I'm with you with him. I think the approach there, 40-1, you've got a better ticket as far as the odds are concerned. I'm taking a guy that's a little less at 30-1. And again, make sure you're shopping where you're looking here at the time, at least. But Jason Day, and I'm not surprised that he's taken a little bit there, but somebody who we were concerned about his health, right? At the start of the year, somebody we're concerned about, how he's going to be able to survive getting through a round or two or four. And he's playing exceptionally well. He's got a great course history. I know that it doesn't hurt you as far as a negative, but it can help you, I think, as far as if you were playing well. It's not, look, I'm not going Luke List here, where it's somebody who's got a great course history that is playing like absolute dog shit. Jason Day is trending significantly, I think, from where we were kind of concerned in the right direction. So I like what I've seen, especially over the last couple of starts where we've seen him gain a lot of strokes on the green and not needing to gain as much around or as far as approach, which hasn't hurt him. He's not losing strokes there, Ben. So I think Jason Day, and I got him at 30-1. I'm not surprised to see him dip a little bit.
So couple things. One, in 2023 is the best putter in the world right now. That really helps. That masks a lot of, inefficiencies with your ball striking. You got to shop the number. There are still some 35-1s out there.
There you go.
I'm looking at some of them. So anything in that range, I think is acceptable. He's playing great golf. He is playing great golf, but he's going to have to pair up the ball striking because he's gained more than 3.5 strokes putting in 5 straight events. That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, these are undulated greens. You mentioned just the shit that's around them. So a lot of times playing it safe means that you've left yourself an extra couple of feet, but it's not just a straight putt. I mean, you're putting over a mountain at times. It's ridiculous. Some of these greens are just fucking absurd. So you're right. Like, you can't just rely on the fact that you're rolling it flat. He hasn't been killed, though. I mean, you go back to the Farmers. Outside of that, like, he's not losing strokes, even though he's not gaining a ton, Ben. He's not the best scrambler approach shot right now that we see, from 150 in. But I'm taking a guy who's doing something exceptionally well and hoping that it can match up in this tough field, like you trying to find some value there with M. So we've got M at 40-1 day. Again, shop around 35-1 or so. Not bad for a decent mid-range here.
Yeah. I thought, this is why you really got to be flexible. Sometimes I say I love the mid-range. There's like 7 guys there. To me, I do not see it. I would rather take more long shots and more favorites.
I agree. I think this is a good opportunity, and we didn't load up on favorites, but it is a good opportunity to look in that 20 to 30-1 type range. But we have to look a little bit longer. We do this show earlier in the week. We remind you these are our early looks, our early leans of what we have here, right? I think actually I don't want to say leans because Linquist will slap a trademark list. That's mine. I have that trademarked. But we give you an early look, if you will, on Monday. Stuff changes. Weather happens. Tee times happen. Matchups come out. Top 40s come out. So you have questions, and we have answers on the Discord. We'll give you half off the first week. I can't tell you how many times we get it on the Discord. We, the two of us, Lindy as well on the Golf Channel. Hey, what do you think about this matchup here? What do you think about this 3-ball here? Ben, you're constantly inundated with round 1 leader stuff, all the stuff you love to bet. But people ask you, hey, what do you think about this? Because things change throughout the week. So we like to stay on top of that. That's just golf. So you can, how often do you see NBA shit happen or NHL shit happen or anything like that from an injury standpoint happen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, all the things you just talked about, NBA, NHL, certainly live opportunities in a 2.5 hour window. This is 4 days. 4 days of potential value. Things happen, Friday afternoon, and we can actionable on Saturday. There's no way to get content out for that. Certainly here at the OddsShopper Golf Channel, you want to be a part of it. So we will have things here and there, but the best place to find us is in that Discord. And of course, right on Twitter. Handles are there. You give us a follow, you tweet us a question. We'll be happy to answer it.
More than happy.
Yeah.
All right.
Unless it's obscene.
Let's look at a couple of long shots here. Right. Now, speaking of obscene, somebody has a 400-1 ticket.
Yeah, that's you.
Okay.
What do you mean? What are we doing here? Yeah.
Wait a second. You've got a 300.
Well, that's different.
Because it's your guy. That doesn't mean anything that you've got some sort of crush on a guy that you can justify going 300-1 on. Why don't you start with a little more reasonable approach here?
Oh, yeah, this is real reasonable. The other guys I have, listen, I'll say this. The players specifically, weird stuff happens.
Yeah.
Like weird guys can win this. Guys can get in the mix. And there's a million different ways to go here. I'm just going to point out a couple guys. And I have a strategy when I get to the super long shots. Give me someone who's doing one skill set consistently good, and I'll worry about the rest and hope to get lucky rather than someone that's doing nothing all average. Gary Woodland is off the tee automatic. He's gained an 8 straight. He's basically going to give you plus a couple off the tee. Everything else is completely in shambles, hit and miss. You missed the cut at API. The last time before that at Genesis, he gained 10 strokes on the approach. His putter is broken, all that stuff. But he's driving the ball consistent. He's north of 100. I think that's the type of thing I want to look at 150. Alex Noren. He's been a disaster, but he's putting the lights out. He's been positive in every single event in 2023 with the flat stick. He's a really good scrambler. His off the tee game is broken. I'll have to worry about that. Gonna have to get lucky and hope he survives the water balls. But he's doing something consistent. And then finally, I mean, come on now. 300-1. Grillo at API gained 10.6 strokes tee to green. And he lost 9 strokes putting, which is not even. I've been doing this for a little bit now.
Yeah, it's tough.
I'm not sure I've ever seen someone gain 10 ball striking and almost lose 10 putting. You know how hard that is to do?
Seriously, I'm just trying to think of realistic examples of that in my mind.
Putting it into the water would be a good example. Like literally,
like putting it off the green.
yes,
A 10-foot birdie putt, you put that off the green.
into the water. That's how you lose. But again,
Jeez.
I'll worry about the putter and hope to get lucky there. The ball striking is secure. These guys for top 40s, plus money. For top 20s, big plus money. I mean, you don't need them to win the tournament. You just need them to make the cut and give you a sweat.
I'm with you, man. I think you've created some pretty good arguments here. The Noren is interesting. I wonder how good of a DFS player he would be. Same thing, Woodland. I don't know what the range at all, but we've talked about Woodland a bunch this year, and you've got long shot odds. I think a top 40, a ladder approach for a guy like Woodland makes a lot of sense. I don't know what you want with Griot, but look, what do you want from? I don't know what happened to Brian Harman. This guy had a nice little stretch, and then all of a sudden the tournament's got a little tougher, the fields get a little deeper, and he falls off the face of the earth. But he actually fits a couple of pretty good like when you look at when he was playing well, he actually fits a couple of good metrics here, being able, not relying on distance as much, or distance helping get around some areas to shorten up some approach shots. The last 3 events were horrific. He missed the cut in 3 of his last 4. The API was about as forgettable as it gets for him, especially around the green. But there's hope that if he returns to some form that we saw not last year, but recently, maybe like 4 or 5 events ago, that maybe Brian Harman at $150 to 1 becomes an interesting guy to make the cut and hover. And now all of a sudden, if you've laddered him, losing that ticket doesn't hurt you as much. I'll leave you with this. All right. There is a guy who I think
I'm already laughing. I don't even know who it is.
Look, Martin Laird played better last week than a 400 to 1 ticket this week. When you add the element of Sawgrass and you add the field and the elevated purse and all the shit that comes with this, yeah, I get that his odds get pushed down a little bit, but this is a guy who was dead, just absolutely dead for 3 straight events. And he comes out and he T40s last week where he didn't play exceptionally well. Like, he didn't come out and just play exceptionally well. He played okay. He probably played more poor than not. And he T40s at the API. I'm sorry, Ben, but that's momentum for Martin Laird. Yeah. I'm willing to take it.
I mean, he does fit. He can't putt. He just simply cannot putt. But his ball striking's not bad.
But it hasn't hurt him, though. Ben, he hasn't lost. I mean, he lost, what, 0.36, 0.42, 0.01, 0.05. That's 4 straight events where he's missed the cut 3 in a row. So it's not like he's losing like an insane amount of strokes putting.
No, so you could take it 2 different ways. No, but he's not a spike putter. So I'd rather have a guy that's like, he's going to lose 6 strokes putting or gain 6 strokes putting. Fair. Martin Laird, he just does nothing on the greens, but he's probably not going to putt himself out of it either. He just doesn't give you a ton of upside. I want to actually drill into Brian Harman a little deeper here with his history. And again, I'm cherry picking a little bit, but I found this interesting. In 2019, Brian Harman lost 8 strokes at Honda on the approach, miscut. He followed it up at API. He lost 4 strokes with the approach, miscut, horrible. Came in 8th at the Players the next week, gained across the board. It can turn that quickly in Florida. So I don't think just because the guy's playing poorly, you automatically say, oh, he's not ready to tackle Sawgrass. That's not always the case.
9 guys in the field have top 10s over the last 5. He's one of them. Granted, you can explain away all of the specifics to it, but to your point, that's one of them that has worked in his favor. I think these long shots that we've laid out, 5 of them, have a pretty good opportunity to top 40.
I'm going to look at these type of guys.
Don't bet that. I'm joking.
No, don't do that. We've got this show is building quickly, and we just negated it
don't
all with one sentence. It's a great opportunity to really open up the card. Certainly on the DFS side over at Stochastic, we're going to have you covered because these guys are going to be possibly in lineups as your last man in. But from the betting standpoint, I definitely have some interest in these long shots this week.
All right, let's look at the final card. This is not locked in stone by any means. This is just, again, the early look that we have that we want to get ahead of, maybe an early wager before some steam picks up, what have you. And again, shop. Ben, have at it.
Yeah, so again, I think that we both drilled down into this like 20 to 30 to 1 range that has Justin Thomas, that has Xander, that has Cantley types, guys that have been close. Maybe they haven't put it all together. We know they can win. Of course, JT's already got one of these in the closet. I don't like the mid-range. I mentioned Sanjay, but I'm more focused on, I'm going to take a handful, 5, 6, 700 to 1 plus shots and probably ladder them. Have some top 40s, have some top 20s, guys like Woodland, guys like Griot. I didn't mention a guy like Thomas Detry, but I think he could bounce back. There's just a million different ways to take this. Bez is another one. And one final thing. A lot of people are talking about Webb Simpson. He showed some form. He's a former champion. He's a couple 100 to 1. I get it. I'm not the guys I mentioned I like more than Webb, clearly. But if you're another guy looking for form in that type of range, you're not going to find many players that have that in the course history of Webb Simpson.
Wasn't that also the year which we talked about that JT with the weather?
It might. I mean, there was, all I know about that year is that Webb literally chipped in. He would hit it in the water and they'd be like, oh, just chip it in. He was ungodly with the putter and the round the green. It was one of the more impressive things I've ever seen.
All right. I think for me, it's, as I mentioned, JT, you want to have at it there. That's fine. But I'm going to attack. This worked last week. I think it's starting to work as the fields get a little deeper and you see where we are with the mid-range. But Jason Day, Sung J M, Corey Connors is a guy that lights up when you start to talk about fit at this place, history at this place, what he was doing just as recently at the API. I know Sunday was a little bit of a disappointment as far as where he finished, but Corey Connors is playing, I think, strong golf. I'm going to attack these guys in matchups and 3 balls, Ben, because I'm going to, right, unless I'm going up against another one or I'm going up against some, right? But I think pairings and matchups allowing us to do this, these are 3 guys that I'm really going to attack in matchups and 3 balls this week.
I love it. Corey Connors on Friday at one point, I think, had the lead. He stormed at APIs. So just another name to keep in mind. Again, it's the players. It's a great tournament. There's a lot of luck involved when you're dealing with water. All we can do is try to put ourselves in the best position to get lucky. And that's how you can be really successful at events like this.
All right. For Ben Rasa, Eytan, Shander, Chris Karen producing, we appreciate you all out here on the ever-growing OddsShopper Golf channel. So thank you. Hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe here. More. Take advantage of what we have. That link's below for you at Bet365. And we'll see you after the players, right, Ben?
Absolutely. Long golf season ahead, but good luck. Enjoy this week.